In our next subsection, we're looking at the appropriate techniques in conflict management. And in particular, we're looking at the various business conflict modes. And as a result of modes, obviously, there'll be a development of the models. Models have a way of speaking of how to do something with regards to conflict, whether it's resolving them or whether it's a process of conflict management or a process that leads to conflict resolution. And so we look at various methodical ways of dealing with conflict. We'll also look at the Thomas Kilmann conflict mode, which embraces 5 conflicting management styles. So let's firstly just look at competing. Characterized of competing, we're talking about forcing or rather aggressive against the resistance of the other party. So characteristic for competing is a forceful, aggressive approach against the resistance of the other party. It could be a pursuit of personal interests ahead of the other parties. So my interest is more important than the other people that I'm in conflict with. What are the advantages of it? Well, it tends to seek quick resolution. In a competing and compelling environment, the advantage will be seeking quick resolution. At times it can be an enhancement of self-esteem, drawing respect in the face of resistance. And so in a particular example could be putting across what you believe in and your values assertively so that the other party knows exactly where you stand regarding what you believe and your values. Well, what are the limitations? The limitations that could be, it could adversely impact relationships in future. In particular, if you're trying to develop a relationship with the other party at hand. It may cause opposition to react in an aggressive manner. So if your stimulus is aggressive, it could be countered by the other party as also them wanting to show aggression. It requires a lot of energy and can become an exhausting exercise when we want to deal with conflict in this manner. Let's look at the mode of collaborating. What characterizes collaborating? Collaborating is really centered around problem solving and confronting, resulting in a win-win solution. The win-win solution concept is very important because it creates opportunities to engage again and to be referred by the other party to other people because it has created value for everybody at stake. Conflict resolution becomes an opportunity for mutual benefit, in particular the outcomes of that conflict resolution. It is also characterized by a high level of trust, importance of long-term relationships. So if you want to build long-term relationships, collaborating is a mode that's conducive to positive conflict resolution. Well, what are the advantages of collaborating? Well, mutual trust and respect is developed in solving the conflict and looking at a win-win outcome. And by the way, it's less stressful. Another advantage can be that there's shared responsibility in the outcome, with reputation as a good negotiator. So in other words, if two negotiators come to a point where there's possible conflict and they apply collaborating as a mode of dealing with the conflict, they may walk away with the responsibility and reputation as good negotiators. Well, what are the limitations when it comes to collaborating? Well, it requires commitment from all parties involved. And not always in conflict, other parties may always want to show that kind of commitment. So we've got to kind of be on an equal level or a keel where we share the same energies when it comes to commitment. A limitation may be more time and effort is required than the other methods that are applied in conflict resolution. It may not be practical if time for collaboration is limited. So in some conflicts, we have to make decisions very quickly or agreements very quickly. So this win-win collaboration environment will obviously require time. And if time is limited, it becomes a limitation on collaborating. Another limitation is if trust is lost, relationships revert to the other modes of resolution. So at the epicenter of collaborating, trust becomes key and critical. Compromising can be another mode when it comes to various business conflict environments. This is characterized by an expedient and mutual acceptable solution satisfying all parties involved. This usually is good or prevalent when collaboration or competing has failed to work. Let's look at the advantages of compromising. Well, the resolution is quicker to implement. It's practical when time is of the essence or time is an issue. Temporary solutions or solution when looking for a win-win solution. It eases tension and stress resulting from the conflict. What are its limitations? It may result in a lose-lose situation, meaning both parties aren't able to embrace in a process that brings out a positive outcome. They're not willing to engage, so people walk away from it. And that's the dangers of a compromising environment having to fail. It may not contribute to a trust relationship in the long run. Too much effort in monitoring and controlling the process to ensure agreement is met. Looking on to the next one, which we call avoiding and withdrawing. Again, this one is characterized by one or two things that are key and critical that epitomizes the avoiding, withdrawing mode. Pursuant of the other's interests ahead of their own. So the principle here would pursue their interests ahead, or the other person's interest ahead of their own. And sometimes it's not perceived in good faith. It kind of puts the other party off and not understanding why the person across from them is looking at at his interest or her interest ahead of his own interest. It doesn't necessarily address the conflict, but kind of tends to sidestep or postpone or withdraw from the conflict. In essence, it's probably looking at buying time to think about what the next necessary steps are to be made in the conflict. Well, what are the advantages? Well, countering competitors' aggression by slowing down the process, by seeking to withdraw until you are in a position to negotiate. So sometimes when you're not quite ready or in the frame of mind of negotiating, that may be the desired advantage. It may be a way of ducking or sidestepping or moving away, looking for a low stress approach when the conflict is short. Time and ability to focus on important issues. So you kind of want more time and ability to focus on higher priority situations. So you put the interest of the other person ahead of yours. Could be to buy time to counter when ready. Now let's look at the limitations. It may lead to a weakening or losing your position to negotiate effectively. So you're standing within the negotiation process or in the conflict arena may be somewhat weakened with the possibility of losing your position. Another limitation will be where multiple parties are involved. You may lose face, impacting negatively on the potential future relationship you may have sought to have with the parties involved. And so the parties would perceive the potential of possibly future business or future relationship as not quite what they were looking for. And so it could have a negative impact in that regard. We can look at another mode which talks about accommodating. This is also known as smoothing. Accommodating others' concerns at your personal expense. Well, what are the advantages? Well, here one is seeking to protect more important interests than the ones at hand in the conflict at hand. It allows you or one to buy time for opportunity to reassess the situation from a different perspective. What are the limitations? Risk can be abused. As opposition looks to take advantage of your offer to accommodate, it can affect your confidence to respond to an aggressive opponent. It may become difficult to transition towards a win-win solution in future. It may be off-putting to your opponent. Let's end off with just a quick summary of the modes. And we look at the 5 conflict handling types that we've looked at and what they mean. What does it mean? Well, in the first one, we talked about competing. This is where you win, but your opponent loses. That's not really good. Particularly in a negotiating environment, what it means is that you've been the aggressor, they've been passive. And so the scope for future business or relationship diminishes because they're unlikely to want to engage you again in the future. The second conflict handling type that we looked at was collaborating. Here you win, and your opposition also win. This is healthy. It's an assertive position for both sides, meaning that you can engage again and do another transaction that's similar, and there is the possibility of your opponent even referring you to other people. The third one is compromising. Neither wins, meaning that there's no willingness to engage. Fourth one is avoiding and accommodating. I lose, you lose. Pretty similar outcome in terms of compromising. We're not willing to engage. We have different ranges of negotiation and interests. There's nothing that intersects our interest And so we're on two different wavelengths. And so we're not be able to come to meet because there's no common ground. The last one, which was accommodating, is I win, I lose, you win. You become passive. Your opponent is aggressive. The key thing, your opponent sometimes may take advantage, but it is concerned about goodwill. Is the negotiation or the conflict being handled in goodwill? On your side, because you lose, you're not likely to wanting to engage this person in the future. So if they come knocking on your door in the future, you're likely to evade them and refer them to somebody else. And so the energies that would have been used to come to an agreement pretty much ends and settles it there and stems the likelihood that you would do anything in the future. And that concludes our various business conflict modes, which can be effectively applied when it comes to the appropriate techniques in conflict management.